Hey Nerdles, this is Swizzard here with our bringing you our review of Captain America: Civil War.
This is Caitlin.
This is Eric.
This is DC Wolf.
This is your monthly boost.
Cobra.
So we're going to be talking very briefly, spoiler-free, about Captain America: Civil War. The first thing we all want to discuss is the story. What did you guys think of the overall story in the movie?
I was super impressed by it. I thought, this is the best Marvel movie, in my opinion, to come out to date. It had my emotions everywhere. Happy, sad, I was crying in some parts. This was just perfect, in my opinion. Everything I expected and more.
I liked it a lot. I felt it had a little bit of a subplot, political-oriented, something like that. Reminded me of Winter Soldier. Honestly, one of the best stories so far.
The movie just had me screaming out my emotions by the end of the movie.
My emotions! My emotions!
I thought it was thought-provoking. It did a great job at exploring the consequences of the heroes' actions and their motives.
Moose?
I thought the story elevated comic book movies to the point where people say it's going to die out, but this proves that it won't. And I put it up there with Star Wars level story where it's going to start a whole phenomenon and connections and stuff like that.
I like it.
I agree.
For me, my thing is that I think it was the most emotional movie of the Marvel Universe so far. One point when you're starting to think, oh, everything's okay, then something tags your heart and pulls you back. Other than when Peter Quill's mother passed away, I feel this the most emotional Marvel films.
I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. It was a pretty emotional film all the way around. I felt like each story arc for each individual character wrapped up nicely. None of them felt ham-fisted. It's a really good job overall, and I agree with Mike. It kind of elevates the genre there. So what about the characters in general? How did you guys feel about the different characters? Scarlet Witch, Black Panther, of course Spider-Man, we've all seen in the trailers.
I was really impressed by how they evenly displayed all the characters, and they did bring in a lot of new characters in this movie, as the trailer shows. So I was really, really happy with the way they did it. It didn't feel like Spider-Man was just thrown into the story with no rhyme or reason, and the same thing with Black Panther. When he comes out, it doesn't just feel like some random mash of people coming out, and they bring Ant-Man into the movie as well, and I think that they really did that in a really seamless manner. And as you guys may remember, last month we did a review on Batman vs. Superman, and we talked about how proud we were of them bringing Wonder Woman in and how well they did with her fighting and made her a strong female. I was super impressed with how they did Scarlet Witch and Black Widow. They were strong and incredible. Their fighting was amazing. I was so happy. It's been so long, it took for Marvel to bring females into the universe, and I feel like this movie just did it perfectly.
I disagree a little bit. I think director struggled at points with all his characters. There's so many characters. I mean, there's more in the comic, but there's still, for a movie, this is a lot of characters. He can't have them all on screen all times, but that said, when they are on screen, I thought he did a really good job. For instance, if you had just finished watching Ant-Man and you watch this movie, you would have never felt that Ant-Man's character was out of place, out of character. He felt like he just rolled right in the movie from the last one. And I pretty much, all the new characters were amazing. And if you have old favorite characters returning, they were great. The primary villain was very intellectual. And for this sort of story, it really elevated the whole movie.
Oh yeah, for me, it's definitely Spider-Man and Black Panther. They did an amazing job with these new characters and introducing them. For Spider-Man, I felt like they just did an amazing job at just nailing down his character in one scene. And then just seeing him in action and fighting all these heroes, it was pretty amazing to watch on screen. And Black Panther, they did a great job with his character arc and just having him evolve throughout the film, having him progress, and it was just great. But yeah, they also did a good job with the already established characters, and the conflict between Steve Rogers and Tony Stark was definitely well fleshed out, and you can definitely tell why they're at each other's throats, and it's just painful to watch them fight.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And that's just what I believe Marvel, the company, does good with their characters. Every character in that movie, you can connect with. So when you see the next movie, you can relate with them or feel emotion for them, go through their journey with them. Yeah, I just like that the most. I saw that through every character. I got connected to every single one for each one of their reasons displayed from past this movie, and I look forward to the next ones.
for me, everybody pretty much touched on like the story and the feelings between everybody. Personally, I liked how everybody had their uber moment in the movie. Every hero had their ownage point. Even from just using their power sets and going off, and just no one got shied out of being on screen, having their screen time. So I like that with the Russos actually splitting up each character at the same time, making it all feel like they're all together. So
agreed. I think, Eric, to your point, everybody had the exact perfect amount of screen time that they needed in the story. Maybe some didn't get as much as others, Hawkeye being an example of that. But every time he was on screen, it mattered, and his character felt important to the story, to what was going on in the scene. I think in general, just to touch on the acting, I think the acting was pretty elevated here. It was really good across the board. Robert Downey Jr. being sort of the special standout amongst the group, but even Chris Evans, Sebastian Stan, they were all really solid. And also shout out to Daniel Bruhl. His villain is probably the most complex emotionally, probably the best villain since Loki was introduced in the series. Now, what about score and visuals? How'd you guys feel? I felt everything was pretty much on point. The music never seemed out of place for what was going on screen, and the visuals were all pretty solid in my opinion.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the way they did Spider-Man. I wasn't sure how it was going to come across, but I think that the way they did the animated part with the eyes and everything, it looked really cool and like realistic, and nothing seemed too out of place for me.
For visuals, I have to kind of say that I have to see it again in IMAX. Supposedly there's some scenes there are some scenes that are particularly shot in IMAX that it should be viewed in IMAX, seen at their best, but there's some scenes that may have been cut out in the normal version. As far as the score, I didn't notice it very much, which says to me that it fit well in all the moments. It never was out of place.
For me, I felt the visuals were pretty great. I mean, I definitely had no problem with it. And as for the score, for me, score is always pretty important for a movie, and I felt like they did a pretty great job at capturing each character and their theme, especially with Spider-Man. Like with Spider-Man's theme, there was definitely a hint of Danny Elfman, classic theme for the Raimi movies, which is what I kind of liked.
I kind of agree with Eric on that. I probably didn't see it again. I didn't really notice the score too much, but there was no track that took me out of it or anything. Everything seemed to blend in. As for the visuals, I think the visuals culminating from other films was in that movie. Like when you see Ant-Man, visuals look pretty much exactly like the Ant-Man movie. You watch Captain America and Iron Man look like the Avengers. And Spider-Man, he looked good, CGI wise and practical wise. It looked like new and old for the better. All in all, I think the locations and all the editing is pretty spot on.
For me, score-wise, the only thing that ever, for me, it stuck out is whenever particular characters were on, they played sort of a Peter and the Wolf. They played their music. Like when Winter Soldier's on, you heard this score from Winter Soldier. You heard that. So, but I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Just that's
right.
Their character's thing. And again, as I said before earlier, that as with Spider-Man, his costume being so, I'm not complaining. I like the costume, like everything about the look. Just that I can never tell when it was CG Spider-Man or real Spider-Man. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think they may just blended together so well. But even when he was just standing there, he looked CG. Again, maybe it's because of color. Like
I think he pops so much compared
he pops
to the
out.
background.
Yeah, exactly. So again, not complaining, just stating that's
For me, I just liked how it looks like a Alex Ross painting just come to life.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
To me, I was just going to say real quick, I really like the way they did the webbing with the Spider-Man.
Yes.
I think that it really, however they did it, it photographed really well and it came across. I love that you can see the strength of the web. And I feel like this movie in particular, Spider-Man wise, has done a good job of showing, what this webbing can do. And
Everything visual wise for Spider-Man for me was on point, was spot on. And it made sense within that universe. Logically, why he would look that way, why this would happen, specifically the eye apparatus and for his mask. To your point on the score, I felt like they hit all the right notes when they needed to push your emotions, because that's what the music's job. So overall, how'd you guys feel about the movie? Personally, I think it's a 9.5 out of 10 shells. There's a couple little minor things I gripe with, more from characterization standpoint, that for spoiler reasons we can't get into. But I think overall, it's probably one of the best Marvel movies that's out. Right now, it's still really fresh for me, so I've got it up there with Winter Soldier, which has long been my number one since that came out. Whether it eclipses it or not, I'm going to give it a little more time, a couple more viewings, and I guess we'll see if it truly outpaces it. But for me, I thought it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I'd give it between a 9 and 9.5 shells out of 10. And one thing that I would say is I wish that they had touched on the different, obviously with Marvel right now, they have so many shows out. They have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they have Jessica Jones, they have Daredevil. I wish they had touched on some of those shows, even if it was a quick sentence about, oh, you know, there's so many of you guys coming out in New York right now. Even if it was a simple sentence, I wish that they had just talked about that.
Well, I guess they touched on it a little bit with Agent Carter, but that just happened to work out that way. I felt the movie overall great. It's long. I feel like I have to take it in more. I feel like there's so much to take in. I don't think it was long in a bad way. Right now, I'm giving it 9 shells out of.
I mean, yeah, I agree from most of you guys, but yeah, I gave it a 9.5 shells out of 10. Yeah, I guess one of the things that should be noted is if for some reason you avoided Marvel movies for the past 8 years, there's definitely a lot of context from past movies that new viewers are going to have a hard time understanding. But other than that, it's just a great culmination of the overall MCU franchise, and it definitely has a great emotional impact on you with you growing close to these characters.
For me, I'd give it 10 out of 10 shells just because, in my opinion, it continued the storyline of Captain America for me. I've been binging and rewatching the Captain America movies, the Avengers, and it seems like a perfect stepping stone from Age of Ultron to this without beat, and it's like extra bonus for putting in Spider-Man, Black Panther, Ant-Man, and the dialogue was good, the visual effects, the action, just it all culminated for me as one of the great Marvel movies, comic book movies, and it's all the beats in one movie. So, I mean, yeah.
Like you, I keep going back and forth whether I like it more than Winter Soldier or not. The thing I keep weighing on that makes me think it is a little bit better than Winter Soldier is outside of the first Avengers, this is the first time them coming together mattered. Now, Avengers 2, of course, people cared about it, but it wasn't as big as a feel as the first Avengers, seeing everybody on the screen at the same time. And this one, seeing that all those heroes, especially the battle, the airplane, seeing everybody at one time.
I think that there definitely was more of a cool factor in this movie compared to that one.
And I think, sadly or not, for Age of Ultron, I think it felt like more was at stake in this.
Yeah.
Than
exactly.
there was in Ultron.
Ultron, right. And I feel Ultron was a setup for this movie, you know.
We felt the repercussions. It was discussed in the movie.
Right. And so I that's the reason it's making me edge a little more. But then when I think of Winter Soldier, I keep thinking of that. I didn't know what to expect of Winter Soldier, and I came out the movie theater like, this is, you could have took the superhero aspect out and it still would have been a great movie. So that's why I'm going back and forth. But I still give it a 9.5 out of 10 shells.
All right, well, that was our review of Captain America Civil War. And for everyone here, this is Swizzard.
This is Caitlin.
This is Eric.
This is DC Wolf.
Moose.
It's Cobra.
And as always, thanks for watching, Nerdles. Geek out.
And stay tuned to our next edition, the with spoiler edition of our review of Civil War.